Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dilettante's Bookshelf. My name is Michelle, and today I am doing my first ever tag video. So I was watching a video over on Melinda's site, which is a web of stories, and I'll link that in the description box below. And she was sharing this tag, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to take part myself. So here we go. I'm going to write all of the questions in the description box below. So if you'd like to take part, consider yourself tagged. So I am new here on BookTube. So if you are new as well and you're just looking to get your channel started, please consider yourself tagged and then comment below so I can come by and see your answers. So the first question is, you have 20,000 books on your TBR. How do you pick what to read next? So I don't have quite 20,000 books on my TBR, but I've accepted the fact that I will never, ever, ever, ever read all the books that I have put on my list. In fact, I'm not sure I'm going to read everything that is on my list for October, so let alone all of the books that I'd love to read in time. But I would say that I have a couple different ways that I keep my TBR list. So one of them is I do have a TBR list that's on my library's site, so I can go through, and when I find books that sound interesting to me from watching other booktubers or different places, I will go ahead and I will add those to my library page. That's my primary way of keeping them. Now, the books that I'm really excited about, that I really definitely want to read, I will request them from my library if they're available. If it's not an author I'm familiar with, or if it's a series that I don't know anything about, a new genre, those I always tend to request from the library first. And then I will have all my library books kind of lined up on my bookshelf at home. And I keep them lined up, and then I tend to put them in order of when they're due back at the library. And a wonderful tip that I got from Chantel Reads is she had said in one of her videos that if a book's coming due for the library, she'll take it down, read a few pages, and see if it grabs her. And if not, she returns it. So that's a practice that I've taken on myself. And a lot of times I'll just kind of look at the books and decide what I want to read from that list. Then I have, as I said, the list that's online of books that I haven't requested but that I don't want to forget about. I have books that I have added for this month because I'm taking part in Victober and also Spooktober. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but that's what I'm calling it, where I'm reading spooky October Halloween vibe books. So I'm calling it Spooktober. It's probably a thing. It's probably already a thing, but that's what I decided to call it. And I have those books on my Kindle, the ones that I'm planning on reading. And then other than that, I will buy books online. I buy thrift books and things like that for books that I haven't read. So it does happen. And they just tend to go on my bookshelf. And again, I just kind of go and usually as I'm going about, and I'll through my day, and I'll take a look at the bookshelf and I'm like, oh, that book looks good. So it just kind of draws me in. And that's pretty much how I tend to pick my next book. If it's I'll be honest, it kind of needs to be tangibly here. I'm pretty sure that the book list I have online, I'm never going to look at again, because if things are not in front of me, I tend to forget about them. So unless by some huge miracle I happen to read every book that I have in physical copy and don't request any more from my library, which really don't see happening. Are any of us going to do that? So if I ever run out of books to read at home, then I might go and look at that book. Or if I'm kind of feeling in a funk and I want something different or a different genre, I might go check that list out. But it's really, I think, just makes me feel better about the fact that I haven't abandoned these books that sounded interesting to me, that they have a home somewhere for me to potentially read somewhere down the road. Question number 2 is, you're halfway through a book and you're just not loving it. Do you quit it or are you committed? And for me, I would quit it. Even halfway through a book, I actually had a book now that I was reading that was getting close to the end, and I was trying to push myself to finish it. It was a nonfiction book, and I was trying to push myself to read it, and I kept reading, and it was just kind of, I felt like it was just repeating the same kind of stuff over and over and over again, and I felt like I had gotten the point, so I stopped. So yeah, I have so many books that I want to read, and if I'm not loving the book, I'm just gonna quit it. So yeah, I would definitely quit a book. I'd probably quit a book if there was 20 pages left and I really hated it, or if it started to turn in a direction that I'm not interested in. I've done it with television series where if all of a sudden you're in the last season and I'm like, I don't like the direction they're going in. So I can live with not having finished a book that I've invested time in. I'm fine with that. Okay, the end of the year is coming close and or the end of the year is coming to a close and you're so close to your Goodreads goal, but you're not quite there yet. Do you try to meet your goal? And if so, how do you go about it? So yes, absolutely. I would try to meet my goal, especially if I'm close. My Goodreads goal is 52 books this year. So I had set a goal of reading a book a week, which for my lifestyle is pretty much where I am at. And I've shared that in other videos here on the channel. At a time in my life, I used to be able to read a book a day, and I just don't have time like that now. I am rehabbing my habits, maybe rehabbing my habits, where there were times where I would be sitting, watching videos and things like that, or scrolling and doing. I try to read more, so I am bringing more and more reading into my life, but I would definitely try to read more. And one of my favorite ways to hit any reading goal is to kind of sit down, see how many books I want to read, pick the books that I'm going to read, and then I look at how many days are left before I have to kind of reach that goal. And then I divide out how many pages are in the book by how many days I have left, and then I set a reading goal. So I have to read X amount of pages every day. And that's my plan for Victober and Spooktober. And that's how I try to get through. And it usually works. I'm usually able to reach my reading goals by doing that. One other thing I love that Melinda shared was she talked about, and the name just escaped me now. They're on Kindle, the mini books that you can get that authors have put out. I forget what they're called. She talks about it. I'm going to link her video, of course, in the description below, along with her channel. But she talked about books that are really like short word count or short page counts that you could finish up quickly at the end. So the minute she mentioned that in her video, I was going over, I'm like, what is this? I didn't know about these. So yeah, it was really exciting to find about these little mini books that are on Kindle Unlimited that you can read. So I have added a bunch of those to my list, to try to up my reading count for the year. Question number 4, the covers of a series you love don't match. How do you cope? I don't know that I would have an issue with the book covers matching. It is more the format they're in. So if I had a series that I love, because when I do love a book, I go and I purchase the book itself. And I'm kind of into hardbacks lately. I really, really like a hardback book, especially for series that I love. I want a hardback. So I would be more devastated if I couldn't get it in the same. So in other words, if it was only like you could only find it now in paperback, but I have if it's a 4-book series and I have 3 of them in hardcover and one of them I can only get in paperback, that would drive me crazy. And I wouldn't rest until I found the hardback cover probably. It would just probably, I'd consider it, I wouldn't buy the paperback. Like I would consider it incomplete set until I was able to find and locate a hardcover of the book, because that would bother me more. I don't really pay attention to the cover art. I know a lot of people collect gorgeous cover art and stuff like that, and I think I'm gonna get there at some point, but right now I'm just trying to build a library of books that I love, because a lot of over the years I've read so much, but I tend to not hang on to books once I've read them. If I love them, unless they're ones I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I have to make sure other people know about this book and I want it up on my bookshelves for people to see, or I want to share it with other people in my family. I don't tend to keep them. So I'm starting now to build a collection of books that I just love. So I don't have tons and tons and tons of books. So for me, it's not as if I have shelves filled with, these gorgeous illustrated books. I'll get there. I'm sure I will. But so for right now, the covers wouldn't bother me as much as, if they were different sizes, like even if they were the hardcover but different, that would drive me crazy. I couldn't handle that. So everyone and their mother loves a book that you don't like. How do you cope, and who do you share your feelings with? So I don't have a lot of readers in my life, in the real world. So I don't have a lot of people to share the love of reading with. So I wouldn't have anyone to commiserate. My husband would listen, but he probably wouldn't get it as much. And yeah, I find with most things, if it is getting rave reviews, I don't even bother because I'll probably hate. I tend to hate classics. I always have. I've tried. Um, I'm working through some of them now, and I'm not saying I don't like any of them, but okay, maybe I am saying I don't. The only book classics I associated with my high school literature classes that I had to take, and I just hated all the books that they assigned. I felt like they were dreary and depressing and just like the worst parts of life, and I didn't understand why people would read these books. And I don't like to read harrowing stuff, mysteries, intriguement. I mean, I read a lot of cozy mysteries and things like that, like Agatha Christie and stuff, but those to me are almost more character driven and mystery driven than about necessarily the horrors. I don't know. Maybe I'm placated. But anyway, try to stay on point. I don't ever usually like the mainstream books. So books that people, and it's one of the reasons why I've looked at joining different book clubs, and I don't think I would enjoy any of the book clubs because they would have books that, majority of people like, and I don't, yeah. So if it's a classic, if it's getting rave reviews, if it's in somebody's book club that they're raving about that's well known, if some famous person's talking about on their book club, oh my gosh, you have to read this book, I'll hate it. It's pretty much a guaranteed. So I don't even bother. So yeah, I don't usually read them. I have gotten my best recommendations for books from BookTube, from people who I've kind of resonated with their reading style, and things that come up as recommendations from books that I've already purchased. So, if I like to buy books secondhand on thrift books, so they'll make recommendations. Sometimes I find things like that, or my library will make recommendations based on the books that I've read. And yeah, that's where I stay with. But I have zero highbrow, academics are never going to look at my bookshelf and be like, oh, it's not. And I'm okay with that. I am truly, truly okay with that. It took a while. I felt like, as a reader, you had to like the highbrow stuff. And Melinda talked in her book about how she doesn't like Jane Austen. I want to. I really do. And when I hear other people talk about Jane Austen, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Like something I would love. And then when I read it, I'm like, I don't get any of this. So yeah, I don't get what other people get from reading it. If that makes any sense. Like I'm not reading what they're reading. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So I don't have anyone to share with, and I don't tend to share negative reviews because I feel like I'm a creative person, I'm a writer, and I don't mind sharing that a book wasn't for me, but I don't like to share like scathing reviews or, review about like something being not well written or any of that kind of stuff, because I feel like somebody put their heart and soul into a book, and I'm not gonna trash it on them. But at the same token, I'm not gonna read something just because it's gotten so many amazing reviews, if that makes sense. You're reading a book and you're about to start crying in public. How do you feel? I would probably feel ridiculous. I don't think it's ever happened, but I know it's happened with reading a book necessarily. I cry a lot during movies, especially Disney movies. I cry a lot. And my family, I always feel ridiculous. Like if we're watching a show or something and I'm over here, like the tears are just coming down. And yeah, so it is absolutely possible. I just haven't read a book that has me crying a lot. I don't tend to read tearjerkers. So, yeah, I would feel ridiculous. That's about what I can say. So this one says, a sequel of a book you loved just came out, but you've forgotten a lot about the prior novel. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, or try to find the synopsis on Goodreads, or cry in frustration? So I don't know. I guess I probably would either... I can't see myself rereading the previous book. I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably start the sequel, the newest book, and see if I'm able to pick up, because even though I can't usually remember what happened, when I start reading the next book, it comes back to me. And occasionally I'll be like, wait, who is this? And then I just look it up, like, who is this character and what, and I'll do that. But yeah, I would probably just start reading the sequel and see if I remember. And if I don't remember any of it, if it was completely lost to me, I probably would go back and reread it, or I would skip it. That's probably what I would do. Most likely I would skip it. Yeah. You do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell people nope when they ask? I lent out a book that I loved. So for the most part, I don't have a problem lending out most of my books. But the ones that I'm collecting, special ones like that are part of a series, the ones like I was just mentioning that I'm trying to add to my bookshelves, because I read them and I absolutely loved them. It really depends on the person. But since I said I don't love and won't let anyone read it, I would just say I don't lend out my books. And I would probably buy them their own copy if I really thought it was something that they would enjoy. Um, yeah, I just wouldn't, because I remember having a book one time that I absolutely loved, and it was so dog-eared, and it was from when I was a teenager, and I had highlighted it and all these kinds of things. And a friend of mine years later had asked to borrow it, and I lent it to her, and she lost it. And she's like, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. I'm like, I want my book back. And she bought me a new copy. I'm like, I don't want the new copy. I was like, I don't want a new copy of this book. Like, I want my old book back because of the highlights and the it was so dog-eared from I had loved this book and read it so much. And she did end up finding it, but I think that was probably the last time I lent a book out to anyone. So yeah, and I try to be very diligent when people lend me books, that the few times that it happens, to return them in a timely manner to them. So yeah, I would probably just say I don't lend out my books, but I would probably buy them a copy of their own to read. That's probably how I would handle it. You've picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over your reading slump? Okay. I would probably try to read something completely different or go back to an old favorite. So most likely if I've picked up 5 books that I've started reading and didn't finish, it's usually because I'm reading different types of books than I would normally read. So I would probably go back to cozy mysteries. They're kind of my fallback, and you can't go wrong with them, or at least for me. I like them as far as a light read. So something that I could read quick, and maybe isn't have a lot of pages. Some of the cozy mysteries, they're pretty hefty. So I would probably try to find a book that was like 200 pages ish. Something that I felt like I could finish, in maybe 3 days, and kind of get myself back out of a slump. Or I was gonna say reread an old one, but I don't think I would. I think I would just try to go back to my comfort zone, or an author that I loved. An author that maybe had a really long series of books that I haven't finished yet. And yeah, that's probably what I would do, is go back. But to go back to something familiar. Because for me, if I've picked up 5 books, started them, and put them all down, it was most likely because I was reading completely different genre, probably classics. Because I was trying to read something again. And yeah, I couldn't get into it. So that's what I would do. There are so many new books coming out that you're dying to read. How many do you actually buy? So I don't tend to buy books that I don't know I'm going to love. So if it's a series that I already own and it's the newest book, I'll buy it. But if it's a book that I don't know anything about, if it's ones that I've just heard about online, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are really good. I'm very frugal when it comes to buying my books. So I will request them for the library. But if it's one of those things where it's like a 6-month wait list, and I don't know, I don't feel like I have to read it now. I'm not someone who's like, oh, it's just coming out and I have to read it now. So I would probably just add them to my list, or put them on the request for the library. And then if it took months for them to come to me, I would probably just wait, because I have so many books that I can read in the meantime. So if it was somebody I knew and it was part of a series or an author that I just knew for sure I was gonna want the book and want to reread it, because like I said, I love the cozy mysteries and different things like that, but I don't necessarily need to own all of them. So those are great library pickups for me, or used books. And then I'll put them in my free library. But yeah, I wouldn't feel the need that, just because they're coming out now, I have to read them now when they're just coming out. I don't have that sense of urgency around it. So yeah, I don't think that would bother me. The last question is, after you've bought the new books you can't wait to get to, how long do they sit on your shelves before you get to them? Too long, actually. Right now, I probably have maybe 5 or 6 books waiting to be read that I've just purchased that I have not read. And then I have a bunch on the way that I've bought. Actually, no, I have more than 5, 6. Listen to me. Like this shelf alone. Or this shelf. Yeah, this shelf alone. Okay, I have more than 5 or 6 books. So there's an example, and this isn't even, yeah, I have all of these to read, and then I probably have that many again at home that I picked up um, in a recent haul, which I'm going to be sharing with you guys on Thursday. And I have more on the way. So, yeah, I have quite a bit. How long will they sit there? Honestly, I don't even know. It could depend. I'd love to say I'd get to them within a year, but it's probably not going to happen. Most likely, if I was in one of those reading slumps, like we talked about, I would browse my own bookshelves and start there and see what books that I wanted to read. So, yeah, I think it could be about a year. So, all right. I think I've gone on enough about this. This was really fun. I've never done a tag before. I should do the newbie tag. I have to find the questions somewhere though, and I haven't done that. So, yeah, I think this was a lot of fun. Melinda, thank you so much for sharing your video and your comment back. That was really sweet. And I hope you guys will go and check out Melinda's channel because she has some really great videos on there as well. And if you enjoyed this, of course, you know, thumbs up always helps, but consider subscribing to my channel. If you like fiction, if you like cozy reads, please do consider fantasy. I like fantasy books and yeah, whodunits, like a whodunit. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a great day.